After I opened my late mom's hidden file, I discovered my dad knew his brother started the fire that led Luke, and he let me believe I did it until I exposed the truth face to face. Mom's house smelled like lemon polish in the past. Same creaky hallway, same faded runner rug that always bunched up near the stairs like it was trying to trip you on purpose. I was 35, technically a grown man, but grief turned me into a kid again. I kept expecting her to call from the kitchen. Annoyed, I was leaving cabinet doors open. I came to sort things. That's what people say when they don't want to say. I came to touch everything she touched because it's the closest I'll get. Most of her stuff made sense. Recipe cards, Christmas ornaments, a stack of birthday candles she'd never get to use again. Then I opened the cedar chest at the foot of her bed. Under quilts that still held her perfume, there was a shoebox wrapped in brown paper and sealed with old packing tape, like she'd wanted it to survive a flood. On top, a label, shaky but deliberate. For Ethan, when you're ready. My name. Her handwriting. No one else's. My hands started sweating before I even opened it. Like my body already knew what my brain hadn't caught up to. Inside were documents in neat piles. Photographs. A cassette tape in a plastic case. Notes folded into thirds. A key taped to an index card that said, "Back door. Don't tell your father." My father. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Not since the last phone call where he turned my grief into a lecture. He had a talent for making pain feel like a personal failure. I sat on Mom's bed and pulled out the top photo. A little boy in a red hoodie. Me, standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. Smoke-blackened window frames. A burnout porch. Yellow tape in the background. And behind me, half out of frame, my mother's face. She wasn't smiling. She was looking at the camera like she'd been caught mid-lie. I flipped the photo over. In her handwriting, "The night we left, you asked if it was your fault." I said no. My throat tightened. Because I remembered that question. Not the fire. Not the house. Not the details. Just the feeling. The sick, sinking certainty that something awful had happened, and everyone was acting like it hadn't. My whole life, the story had been simple. We moved because of your dad's work. We moved because grown-up reasons. We moved because that's what families do. Except, why would work leave scorch marks? I dug deeper. There was a folded newspaper clipping. The headline was ripped, but I could still read enough. Local family escapes tragedy. 1 teen dead. Dead. My fingers went cold. I looked at the date. It was the year I was 6. And suddenly the childhood move wasn't a quirky chapter anymore. It was a funeral I didn't know I attended. I started with the notes because they were the only thing that felt like Mom's voice. The first one was written on legal pad paper, the kind she used for grocery lists. But this wasn't milk, eggs, coffee. This was a timeline. May 12th, fire. May 13th, interview at station. May 14th, your father decides we leave. My chest tightened on that last line. Decides we leave. Not we decided. Not we talked. Like he was moving furniture, not people. Under the timeline was a sentence circled so hard the pen tore the paper. Ethan keeps saying I did it. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Because I did keep saying that. I remembered the phrase like a chant I couldn't stop. But all my childhood memories of that time were fuzzy, like someone had wiped them with the side of their hand. I'd always assumed it was normal. Trauma does that, right? Kids forget things. Except now I had proof there was something specific I'd forgotten. Something adults had helped me forget. I pulled out another photo. Same red hoodie. My hair sticking up. My mom crouched beside me, gripping my shoulder too tight. In the background, firefighters. A police officer. A man in a suit talking to my father. My father's face was turned away like he didn't want to be recognized. On the back of that photo, Mom wrote, "You held the matchbook." That's what they saw. I swallowed hard. A matchbook. My brain tried to supply a memory and came up with flashes. My small hand. The scratchy cardboard. The smell of sulfur. A light blooming too fast. But it was like trying to remember a dream after waking up. Every time I grabbed for it, it slid away. The documents were next. A police report. Parts redacted. Names blacked out. But one line punched straight through me. Minor child present. Minor child admits involvement. I sat back like the paper had shoved me. Involvement. Not witness. Not nearby. Involved. A smaller note was clipped to the report, written in Mom's handwriting. They wanted to ask you again. Your father said no. He said you were fragile. Fragile. That word made me laugh out loud, sharp and ugly, because it was so convenient. My father loved words like that. Fragile. Sensitive. Dramatic. Anything that made emotions sound like a character flaw. I kept going. There was a school record from right after the move. A teacher's comment. Ethan has nightmares. Ethan refuses to draw houses. I stared at that one because it was true. Even as a grown man, I hated the smell of smoke. I checked stove knobs twice. I kept a fire extinguisher under my sink like it was a pet. And I always told myself it was just anxiety, like it came from nowhere. But this box wasn't nowhere. This box was a grave I'd been walking around with my whole life. I found the cassette tape at the bottom. White label, blue ink, interview, May 13th. My hands shook as I turned it over. And then I saw the warning written underneath, like Mom was reaching across time to grab my wrist. Don't listen alone if you can't handle it. I was alone, and I pressed play anyway. The cassette hissed like an old secret waking up. Then a man's voice, calm, professional. State your name for the record. A pause. Then my mother. Her voice was younger, but it was her. No mistaking that gentle firmness. Marilyn Carter. My stomach twisted hearing her alive in a machine. And your son's name? Ethan. Another pause. Papers shuffling. Mrs. Carter, we're going to ask about the incident at the Morrison property. Incident. That word again. Like a polite napkin over something bloody. Mom said he's 6. The man replied, we understand. Then came another voice, my father. Flat. Controlled. The voice he used when he wanted to sound reasonable, so no one could accuse him of being cruel. Ethan doesn't need to be dragged through this. The interviewer said, we're not dragging. We're clarifying. And then silence. A child's breathing. Small. Close to the mic me. Ethan, the interviewer softened. Can you tell us what happened? I heard myself whisper, I made it. My skin went cold. You made what? The fire. There was a pause where even the tape seemed to hold its breath. My mother said quickly, too quickly. He keeps repeating that. He's confused. The interviewer ignored her. Ethan, why do you think you made the fire? Little me sniffed. Because I had the matches. Matches. Suddenly I could almost see it. Not clearly, but like a photograph overexposed. A barn. Straw. A dark corner. A bright flare. The interviewer asked, who gave you the matches? I didn't answer. My father's voice cut in, sharp like a door slamming. This is enough. The interviewer tried again. Ethan, did you light something? And then my voice broke. I didn't mean to. That single sentence hit me so hard, I had to lean forward with my elbows on my knees like I was about to vomit. Because I'd been carrying that sentence my whole life without realizing it. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to mess things up. I didn't mean to upset people. I didn't mean to be the reason. The tape continued. The interviewer said, Ethan, did anyone else have the matches? My breathing got faster. Little me sounded terrified. And then, my mother whispered, almost like she was praying, baby, you can tell the truth. My father snapped, Marilyn. And the tape cut off with a click, like someone yanked it out mid-sentence. I sat there in the quiet, the machine still humming, like the house itself was waiting to see what I'd do next. My whole body felt like it was vibrating. Because the tape proved the obvious part. We didn't move for work. We moved because something burned. And I was the cause. That should have been the end. A clean, brutal truth. But it wasn't. Because if I'd truly caused a death at 6 years old, why wasn't it a bigger story? Why wasn't there court? Why did my father have the power to just say, this is enough? And the world listened. And why did my mother hide this box like it was evidence, not just memory? I pulled out the newspaper clipping again. 1 teen dead. A teen. Not a toddler. Not a child. Someone older. Someone who could run. Someone who could stop a fire if they wanted. Unless they didn't want to stop it. I dug through the box harder, my grief turning into something sharper. And that's when I found the envelope marked. Ethan, this part is the hardest. The envelope was thick. Too thick for a letter. Inside were photocopies of court filings. Insurance paperwork. A handwritten statement with my mother's signature. And one name that kept appearing like a stain you can't scrub out. Graham Carter. My uncle. My father's older brother. I hadn't thought about him in years, mostly because my father didn't allow old topics. Graham was the family subject that got you a look across the dinner table. Don't. But now he was everywhere in these papers. The insurance claim listed him as a property manager for the Morrison place. The witness statement said he was present earlier that day. And a note from my mother, tight, angry handwriting, read, Graham was the last adult in the barn. My pulse hammered. Because I remembered Graham in a way I hadn't remembered the fire. His voice, too loud. His hands too rough when he ruffled my hair. The smell of cigarettes and something sweet like gasoline. I flipped to the witness statement. My mother had written, I saw Graham hand Ethan something and tell him it was for magic. Ethan thought it was a toy. My eyes blurred. For magic. A matchbook would feel like magic to a kid. Scratch and light, and suddenly you own the sun. My stomach turned as I read the next line. Graham told Ethan not to tell anyone. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Because that wasn't just a detail. That was a pattern. Adults telling kids to keep secrets. Adults calling it protection. Adults making children carry guilt like it's a family heirloom. I kept reading. There was a typed statement from the Morrisons. Neighbors, I guessed. Their handwriting was angry, even through the photocopy. We warned the Carters about Graham. He drank. He played with fire. Played with fire. Like it was a hobby. Then another paper, and my throat closed. It was a coroner's note. Not the full report, just a summary. Cause of death, smoke inhalation. Location, loft above barn. Victim, Luke Morrison, 17. 17. A kid. Almost an adult. I whispered his name like it might unlock something. Luke. And suddenly, painfully, I saw a flash. Not a full memory, more like a single frame. A boy in a baseball cap, leaning against the barn door, smiling down at me like I was annoying but harmless. Luke. I remembered him calling me Red because of the hoodie. And I remembered laughter. And then a cough. And then the smell. Smoke. Thick, bitter, alive. I pressed my palms into my eyes. My whole life, I'd pictured a faceless teen in the newspaper. But this wasn't faceless. This was Luke, who smiled at me. My hand started shaking again, harder. Because if Graham handed me the matches, if he told me it was magic, then what I'd carried as my fault might have been something else. A setup. A kid holding the matchbook is the perfect scapegoat. And suddenly my father's obsession with control made sense in a sick way. If the truth came out, it didn't just hurt me. It destroyed him. Because it meant he chose to protect his brother. Over his son. Over a dead teenager. Over my mother. I found another note, folded so many times it had soft edges. Your father said, "We can't lose Graham too." I read it twice. Then a third time. And my grief finally found a new shape. Rage. I should have called my father immediately. Screamed into the phone until I couldn't breathe. Instead, I did what I always did when my family made me feel crazy. I looked for proof. Because feelings were never enough with my father. Feelings were drama. Proof was the only language he respected. The box had plenty, but I wanted something undeniable. There was a key, remember? Taped to an index card. Back door. Don't tell your father. I stared at it like it was a dare. Mom's house had a finished basement. The kind of basement parents pretend is for storage, but secretly keep their ghosts in. I took the key downstairs. The air got colder with every step. The light flickered once like it was reconsidering. In the far corner, behind shelves of paint cans and old Christmas decorations, there was a door I'd never noticed. Small, plain, almost hidden. There was a lock on it. My throat tightened as I slid the key in. It turned smoothly, like it had been waiting. The door creaked open, and the smell that came out wasn't mold or dust. It was smoke. Not fresh smoke. Old smoke. The scent of something burned and kept. Inside was a narrow room. Shelves. Boxes. A single metal filing cabinet. And on the top shelf, a plastic storage bin with a label in my mother's handwriting. Barn. My stomach lurched. I pulled it down carefully like it might explode. Inside were charred scraps of wood, each one sealed in a plastic bag like evidence. A melted toy car. A piece of red fabric, my hoodie, burned at the edge. And then, wrapped in newspaper, was a small glass jar. Ash. On the lid, written with a trembling hand. Luke's. I sat down on the concrete floor so fast my knees cracked. My mom had kept ashes of the boy who died. Not as a trophy, not as a punishment, as a promise. I opened the jar a fraction, just enough to see gray powder. I closed it immediately, my hands shaking. There was also a smaller envelope taped to the bin. Ethan, if you ever find this, you are strong enough now. Please read. I opened it. It was my mother's letter. The first line destroyed me. You were never the fire. I pressed the paper to my chest like it could stop my heart from breaking. I kept reading through blurred eyes. She wrote about the move. How my father said work, but it was a lie. How the town whispered. How the Morrisons wanted answers. How the police suspected Graham. But without a confession they couldn't prove intent. She wrote about me, 6 years old, waking up screaming. You asked me every night if you killed Luke. Every night. And I said no. But your father made me stop talking about it. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. Then she wrote the part that made my blood run cold. Graham came to the hospital. He looked at you and smiled. He said, kids bounce back. A smile. At a hospital. After a teen died. And my father still protected him. My mother's letter ended with, I hid this because your father said the truth would break you. But the lie broke you slowly instead. I sat in that basement room with Luke's ashes in my lap, and I realized something unbearable. I had blamed myself my entire life. And my parents let me. One of them to protect me, the other to protect his brother. But Mom's letter hinted at something else, too. A third twist, tucked into the last paragraph like a blade. Ethan, you didn't know the whole story. I couldn't say it out loud, but it's in the file. In the file. I looked at the metal cabinet, and my hands went numb as I stood up. The filing cabinet was locked. Of course it was. But taped to the side was a sticky note, faded and curling at the edges. Key in my sewing tin. Mom. Always practical, even when hiding the apocalypse. I found the sewing tin upstairs, beneath buttons and safety pins and spools of thread. The key was there, wrapped in tissue like it was delicate. Back downstairs, back to the cabinet, back to the sound of my own breathing. The key turned. The drawer slid open, and inside were folders, each one labeled with dates, like my mother had been building a case. I grabbed the folder marked confession, so fast I almost tore it. Inside was a copy of a handwritten letter. Not my mother's. My Uncle Graham's. It started with, "Marilyn, I know you hate me." My pulse roared in my ears. I read it once, then again, because my brain refused to accept it. Graham admitted he'd been drinking. He admitted he'd been angry at the Morrisons. He admitted he'd poured gasoline in the barn to scare them, so they'd sell the property cheap. And then the line that made me gasp. I gave Ethan the matchbook because I thought it would be funny. Funny. A dead teenager. A burned barn. A family destroyed. Funny. I flipped the page. My hands were shaking so badly the paper rattled. Graham wrote. I didn't know Luke was up there. Didn't know. Except, Mom's note said Luke was always in that loft. That was his hangout spot. Then Graham wrote the sentence that became the third twist, the one that rewrote my entire life in one breath. When the flame jumped, Ethan screamed. He tried to stomp it out. He ran to the door yelling for Luke. He didn't start it to play. He started it because he didn't understand what I'd done. I froze, because that wasn't the story I'd carried. The story I carried was, I lit a fire. Someone died. We ran. But this said something else. It said I tried to stop it. It said I tried to warn Luke. It said I wasn't just the cause. I was the kid who realized too late he'd been tricked and still tried to save someone. My throat tightened until swallowing hurt. Graham's letter ended with, your husband will never let this surface. He thinks he's saving his son, but he's saving me, and I don't deserve it. I stared at that line, cold spreading through me like poison. My father had the confession. He had it, and he still let me grow up thinking the fire lived in my hands. I sat back on my heels in that basement room and felt something in me rearrange. Not just rage, something worse. A kind of clarity, because my father hadn't simply lied. He had chosen the lie, over and over, and suddenly the patterns of my childhood lined up like evidence. The way he hated when I asked questions, the way he shut down conversations with enough, the way he called my nightmares attention-seeking, the way he insisted I move on from something I couldn't remember. 2 to 4 repetitions, like a drumbeat my whole life. Enough. Move on. Stop. Enough. He wasn't protecting me. He was controlling the narrative. I looked at Mom's letter again. The lie broke you slowly instead. She was right. I'd been broken slowly. I'd built my whole adult personality around the idea that I was dangerous by accident. Careful, apologetic, hyper-responsible, always trying to earn forgiveness for a crime I didn't fully understand. My phone buzzed upstairs, another condolence text, another reminder the world kept moving. I didn't answer. I took the confession folder, the tape, the photos, and the jar of ashes. And I drove to the one place I hadn't gone in years. My father's house. My father opened the door like he already knew I was coming. Same posture. Same stiff shoulders. Same eyes that looked past you instead of at you. Like emotions were something you carried in your hands and might drop on his clean floor. Ethan, he said, like my name was a chore. I didn't hug him. I didn't even step inside. I held up the folder. I found Mom's box. His face tightened so slightly most people would have missed it. That was private. Private. My voice cracked. She's dead. He exhaled, impatient. What do you want? There it was. The old rhythm. Feelings as inconvenience. Truth as threat. I held up the confession letter. You had this. He stared at it like he didn't recognize it. Liking couldn't burn him. I don't know what that is. I laughed, short, bitter. Do you want to keep lying to me, or do you want to keep lying to yourself? His jaw clenched. This isn't the time. It's the exact time. He tried to reach for the paper, but I pulled it back. I listened to the tape. I said, I heard myself say I made the fire. I heard you shut it down. His eyes flicked away. The smallest tell. He knew. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced the words out. Did you let me believe I killed Luke? Silence. Not denial. Silence. I felt my hands trembling, but I didn't drop the folder. Answer me. My father finally spoke, and his voice was ice. You were a child. You needed a clean story. A clean story? I repeated, incredulous. So you gave me a dirty conscience instead? He stepped back like I'd slapped him. Then his face hardened. You don't understand what that would have done to you. What it would have done to me. My voice rose. I've had nightmares for 30 years. I've lived like I'm a walking accident. I've apologized for existing. His nostrils flared. Lower your voice. There it was again. Control. Enough. Stop. I pulled out the jar. His eyes flicked to it, and for the first time he looked afraid. What is that? He asked. You tell me. I said, and my voice went quiet. Because Mom kept it. And you never even said his name. He swallowed. And then, as if he couldn't help it, he said it. Luke. My stomach twisted. You knew. I whispered. He shut his eyes briefly, like he was tired, like my pain was exhausting. Graham was my brother, he said. If he went down, the whole family went down. I stared at him. And in that moment, I understood the real betrayal wasn't the fire. It was the hierarchy. Brother first. Reputation first. Truth last. Me, somewhere under manageable. You picked him, I said. My father's face didn't change. I picked you. The lie came out so smooth, it almost convinced me. You didn't, I said, and my voice broke. Mom did. He opened his mouth, probably to say something sharp. I didn't let him. I held up my phone and pressed play. The cassette recording, digitized, saved, proof. Little me. I didn't mean to. My father flinched like he'd been hit. That was the proof. The exposure. The sound of what he'd let me carry. And in that silence between us, I realized something else. He wasn't sorry. He was embarrassed the truth had escaped. I looked at him one last time. I came here to see if you could finally be my father, I said. But you're still just Graham's brother. Then I turned around and walked away. He didn't follow. Of course he didn't. I drove back to Mom's house with the windows cracked, even though it was cold, because I couldn't stand the smell of myself, like anger had a scent. The sun was going down, and the living room filled with that old golden light that makes everything look softer than it really is. I put the jar on the kitchen table. Luke's ashes. I kept staring at it like it might start talking. I thought about the third twist again, the part that hurt in a strange, tender way. I wasn't just the kid who caused something. I was the kid who tried to stop it. And that should have been a relief. But the relief was tangled with grief, because it meant something else. I'd been punished by guilt for years for a crime that wasn't mine. Not by the law, by my own family, by silence. I sat at the table and tried to remember Luke properly. Not just as the teen. I remembered the baseball cap. The way he leaned like he was too cool to stand straight. The way he called me Red and tossed me a piece of candy like I was his little brother for a second. And then I remembered a sound. A cough. Deep. Panicked. I squeezed my eyes shut. The memory slid away again, but it left behind the feeling, like smoke in your lungs long after you've left the fire. I opened Mom's letter one more time and read the last line again. I'm sorry I couldn't save you from the lie. I whispered. You did what you could. Like she could hear me. Then I did something I didn't plan. I called the Morrison name listed on one of the old documents. The number was outdated, so I searched locally, then found a contact through a community page. Luke's mother, older now. My hand shook as I dialed. A woman answered. Hello. I swallowed. My name is Ethan Carter. Silence. Then, carefully. Are you Marilyn's boy? My throat tightened. Yes. Another pause. I heard her inhale, like she'd just opened a door she'd kept locked for decades. Why are you calling? She asked, and she sounded tired, not angry. Because I found the truth, I said, and my voice cracked. And because I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She just said, quietly, we always knew you were a baby. My eyes burned. We didn't know what your father did, she continued. But we knew you didn't do it on purpose. I stared at the jar. I have something, I said. My mom kept, she kept. I couldn't say ashes. It felt wrong in my mouth. There was a soft sound on the other end, like she covered her mouth. Marilyn, she whispered, not to me. Like she was speaking to my mother's ghost. Of course she did. We talked for 10 minutes that felt like 10 years. She didn't forgive my father. But she told me something that made my knees go weak. Luke's last words, she said, voice shaking. He told the paramedic, tell Red I'm not mad. I felt my breath leave my body. Red. He remembered me. In the worst moment of his life, he remembered me. I hung up and sat in the quiet, staring at the jar. And for the first time, my guilt shifted. Not erased. Replaced. With something real. The next morning, I drove to the old town. I didn't even realize I remembered the way until I was already taking the turns. It was muscle memory. Childhood routes stored under the skin. The Morrison property wasn't a barn anymore. It was a new structure, clean wood, fresh paint, no scorch marks. But the land felt the same. Flat fields. A wind that never stopped moving. I parked on the shoulder and got out, holding the jar like it weighed more than it did. There was a small memorial stone near a tree line. I found it by accident, like Luke wanted to be found. Luke Morrison. Loved. Missed. Always. My throat tightened. I knelt in the grass and held the jar with both hands, unscrewing the lid slowly. The ash didn't look like a person. It looked like dust. And that was the most unfair thing about death. How it reduces someone to something you could wipe off a table. I whispered, I'm sorry, like the word could build a bridge across time. Then I whispered, thank you. Because he'd given me something I didn't know I needed. Permission to stop hating myself. The wind caught the ash as I tipped the jar. It lifted, gray and soft, scattering like it had somewhere else to be. For a second, I panicked. What if I was doing it wrong? But then the ash disappeared into the air, and it felt right. Like I was finally releasing something my family had held hostage. I sat there a long time after the jar was empty. No dramatic music. No big movie moment. Just wind, grass, the sound of my own breathing. On the drive back, I kept thinking about my father. How he'd said, "I picked you." How a lie can sound like love if you say it calmly enough. I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted boundaries that didn't wobble. I wanted to stop living inside his version of the story. So when my phone lit up with his name later that afternoon, I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I didn't listen. I returned to Mom's house at dusk, and for the first time since she died, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. Space where lies couldn't echo. I put the empty jar in the box. Then I taped the box shut again. Not to hide it, to close it. That night, I sat in Mom's living room with one lamp on, the rest of the house dark. The kind of dark that makes you feel like the walls are listening. I played the cassette one last time. Little me. I didn't mean to. "Mom. Baby, you can tell the truth. Dad, this is enough." And I realized something brutal. My mother tried to pull me toward truth. My father pulled me toward silence. For 30 years, I lived in the tug-of-war and blamed myself for feeling stretched thin. The proof was all there now. The photos, the confession, the tape, the ashes. But proof doesn't rewind time. Proof doesn't give you back a childhood without nightmares. It just gives you the right person to be angry at. And weirdly, that was a gift. Because guilt is heavy and pointless. Anger is heavy too, until you set it down. I stood up and walked through the house slowly, touching things. The doorframe where Mom had measured my height. The kitchen counter with a faint burn mark from a too-hot pan she'd laughed about. The hallway mirror where she used to fix my collar before school like it mattered. I stopped in her bedroom and looked at the cedar chest again. I thought about how she'd carried this secret alone. How she'd written notes to a future version of me because she couldn't fight my father without losing me entirely. My chest ached with love and grief, so sharp it felt like a bruise. "I'm okay," I whispered into the room, like she could hear. "I'm finally okay." And for the first time, I believed it. I didn't know what would happen next with my father. Maybe he'd call again. Maybe he'd show up. Maybe he'd pretend nothing happened, the way he always did. But something had changed. He didn't own the story anymore. I did. I turned off the lamp. The house went fully dark, and the silence that followed wasn't scary. It was honest. Just me, in the old house, with the truth finally settled where it belonged. Not in my lungs. Not in my hands. Not in my guilt. Out in the open air, where smoke can't live forever.